So I'm here with Styx Hex and Hammer 666, who is an author, editor, and I am going to say expert of the occult. Is expert too far?
Nope.
You're an expert.
Well, the channel's not just on the occult. Actually, that's a relatively recent culmination on there. I just basically sort of started talking about paranormal topics, and I ended up making a playlist on there that now it's 99 videos of occult lore. The final one, I was waiting for October specifically because of the time of year. Might even wait as long as Halloween. As far as my literature goes, I got first into grimoires, actual spell books. Then I realized there was sort of a differentiation with folk magic. I started writing those and editing those. I realized that alchemical works sort of deserved their own category, and then spiritual works. I'm working on a fifth category just for academic works now, because there's so much lore available and thousands of editions. It's going to be a lifetime of work, but essentially what I want to do is to create the largest single compilation of occult literature anywhere on Earth. I want it to be larger than sacred texts or anything like that, but offering physical copies of the same, essentially. My occult practice, though, the actual, beyond simply the editing and writing, goes mostly, really when it comes down to it, it goes into memetics, it goes into postmodern magic. I like the ceremonial, I like the trappings of older ritualism, but as far as ease of spreading esoteric consciousness to people, it's really all about the internet at this point. The same internet that has allowed older materials to flourish and be spread around from, a million different cultures and time periods, has also created a postmodern magical movement. Memetics is simply thought transference in the secular sense. In the secular sense, it's literally nothing more than generally an image, not always, evokes emotion or some sort of Pavlovian response or whatever, and it spreads around on an evolutionary basis. The idea of the meme is like this, literally the selfish gene. In a biological sense, you're talking about sort of the spreading of ideas in tandem with biological evolution. But I see a literal evolution happening online all the time, by which an image is made, usually captioned. Somebody finds it funny or disgusting or whatever, it spreads, it gets modified over time. Those modifications that are, again, more interesting than the last tend to persevere and lead to additional chains of modification.
And then
those that don't are evolutionary dead ends.
And so a meme is made and it gets spread out throughout the internet. And then what does that accomplish in a like hexes or in that realm?
It brings to consciousness the fact that it's esoteric, but that only happens if the meme itself is esoteric in nature, or it's just presumed to be. If it's just some goofy cartoon, it doesn't have that effect. It's just transferring information in a normal sense. But it's easily applied to the spiritual, especially when we have a world right now where the rise of secularity has led to a sort of disdain for organized religion. And so people, like with the occult renaissance of maybe the Victorian era, they did the same thing. They're seeking new spiritual forms that are exciting, that are new, or not necessarily new, but they're new to them. They're new to mainstream culture. Like back then, people spoke of Atlantis and eugenics and the Aryan race and things like that. Today, it's a rediscovery in the case of the most notorious sort of esoteric meme, which is Pepe or Kek or something like that. It's literally a rediscovery of like ancient Egyptian lore. There are other things as well. You see people constantly talking online about pagan revivalism, Volkish movements, and things like that. I wouldn't affix the warning that, we're back in the 30s, although there are parallels. I would, however, say that certainly the same disenfranchisement of the mainstream population has led to the same situation, only now it's a lot easier for information to spread. It's not, billets and pamphlets like before. It's instant.
In its most realized form, what can that accomplish?
As far as it goes with the election, I think that's probably the perfect example. Hillary Clinton has been hexed in the sense that she's aware of all this going on. Otherwise, she would not have addressed it. She's literally declaring war on a cartoon frog. Think about that for a moment. She's aware of the fact that tens or hundreds of thousands of people are flinging around this negativity. At first, like everybody else, she was trying to deny that it had any effect, but eventually she had to address it in her now infamous Reno speech, where she speaks of what she terms, I guess, loosely the alt-right, although I'm not sure she quite understands what it entails. Represented by the Pepe stuff. Somebody, of course, in the crowd at that same rally jumped up and yelled Pepe and got escorted out. Well, years ago, Pepe was already popular and it was already taking on various forms. What's happened in this election is that at some point somebody noticed that Trump occasionally made a face that looked very much like smug Pepe, and they started drawing him as sort of this frog.
Right.
If you search for it, like Trump Pepe or something, you'll find hundreds of images at this point. And what ended up happening is that as people delved, I guess, more into the esoteric, they realized there were a whole bunch of points of overlap between what was happening, the chaos, and everything else in the election, and what Keck represented through sort of the meme of Pepe, which had no real connection other than being a frog, being sort of the same representation of, young male warriors and chaos and all of these things. And Hillary Clinton is well aware of the fact that this is going on, which is causing a hex, because every time she has to address it, she's bringing it to the conscious mind of herself and her supporters. Her health has begun to deteriorate. Her cough is now back. She had problems at both her Iowa and Florida rally in the last couple of days. She's not yet well. I don't know what that means for the next debate. It'd be very funny if she suddenly had a coughing fit up on stage in front of 100 million people.
Pepe got transferred to Hillary Clinton, and some people using this meme esoterically, and by esoterically we mean like with a purpose.
With an occult purpose, yes. Strictly spiritual, trying to affect things through a manner that's not going to be understood by, let's say, accepted science.
Yes. Okay. So
fringe, in this case, I ascribe it mostly to fringe psychology. That is the manipulation of information, which really has always been the goal of the occult anyway. It's not broomsticks and black cats and cauldrons.
Right. So these people who are trying to co-opt Pepe for an esoteric purpose, what types of things were they doing, and what was their intention?
Well, the intention really is to cause chaos, essentially to frighten people, number one, to affect the election, number two. And it does, I think, accomplish that more than they understand. Even someone who's into the occult, the esoteric, to think, oh, I'm hexing Hillary Clinton. It goes beyond that, because there's also a secular effect as well. Even if the occult had no truth to it at all, it still changes people's minds. It still affects the way they process information. What's happened is that this standard of the alt-right, which the ADL says is like Nazi frog or something, is beginning to terrify, really, people in the mainstream left. They realize that they're being left behind. They're just as incredulous towards this as you might be, probably more. They don't know anything about these online communities. They dismissed them for years. Now all of a sudden they realize that there are potentially millions of people flinging these things around. The psychological effect alone is akin to suddenly being faced down by a massive column of troops marching in your direction, and you're sitting there with 5 or 6 guys trying to defend some gatehouse. You're going to flee. That's essentially what's happening to the Clinton campaign, to neoliberalism in general. It doesn't even matter if Clinton wins the election. I don't think she will. Even if she wins, the neoliberal movement is dead. It's completely gone. It won't exist in 4 years. It'd take on a totally different form, and she'd be a one-term disaster. That's another prediction I'd be willing to make.
Okay. And how much would you say that memes like Pepe the Frog are responsible for that?
To a great extent, because the younger generation that's not on board with neoliberalism gets its information primarily online. Doesn't get it on TV.
Right.
I can't even remember the last time that I sat down and watched TV, as in actually watched an episode of anything, watched an hour of the news or so. It's been probably half a decade or so. And I'm not even in the youngest generation anymore. I'm getting up towards my 30s. I can't even imagine how pronounced that is with people that are just barely entering the voting base. They're like almost 10 years younger than I am. Probably 90% of them never watch TV. If they watch anything, it would be a TV episode that they actually are watching on their phone or their computer or something like that, or they watch it in some other manner, but it has nothing to do with the controlled media. And the media really is central here. The mainstream media, it's obvious who they're on board with, but it's not working. People don't even trust the mainstream media anymore. They don't care what Fox or CNN say. They don't care what Rachel Maddow or any of these others say, because their word is worth nothing.
And from an occult standpoint, in terms of how this actually works, is it sort of like it inserts this sort of idea into the consciousness of society, and then that perpetuates itself?
Yes, and that's really mostly what magic is about. Most people perform magic on a regular basis through intent or through their thoughts and don't even realize it. That's why there's a lot of malice in some people's lives. They don't regulate what they say or what they think. If they're capable of regulating it, seeing past sort of the constructed artificial veil that's been put before their eyes by the media, politics, society in general, the expectations they have, their morality. If they can see past that to the subjective reality beyond, then it's a lot easier to perform magic. It's a lot easier to understand what it actually is. It's not some spook fest where you're calling forth literal demons into physical appearance and then sending them out to attack your enemies. It's much easier than that. It's within a person's own mentality. They can literally affect reality. The reality that any person has ever witnessed through their own eyes and ears is totally different from every other reality. Since they are the god of their own reality through their observation, they can completely change the way in which they interpret the world. And it comes down simply to willpower. Reality is simply made that way by those who have the will to do so. We see, for a quick example, during the years of the Third Reich, they declared themselves the sons and daughters of Atlantis, the sons and daughters of Odin, declared they would have 1,000-year Reich and so forth. They built all these strange buildings and massive sprawling roads, and through sheer will alone, they made themselves temporarily extraordinarily powerful after suffering for 20, 30 years. The fact that they were able to do that was just will. It wasn't because they had better resources than anyone else or better minds than anybody else. It just came down to willpower. It came down to the perception of the population, specifically because they had a charismatic leader and a hell of a good grasp on propaganda.
So the
and
idea
that's really
is
what it was about.
You actually don't have to create a demon to scare someone. If you convince someone that the demon is real, it doesn't matter if it's there or not.
Yeah, organized religion does that all the time. Look how well they've done.
Yeah, they've done pretty well.
The churches and mosques, they're full of gold and silver, and all they ever had to do is tell people, suffer if you don't give us money. It's remarkably effective. It's propaganda. Pepe is a form of propaganda too. I don't think a lot of people realize it. It can be used for good. Most of the people trying to stop Hillary Clinton are doing so because they honestly think she'll be an abysmal failure and lead our nation down the wrong path. I do too. I don't lash out at her out of some dark wizardly malice. I'm sitting there twisting my hands around and cackling with sadistic glee or anything like that. The reason why I would target her campaign and I speak out against it politically, I work against it in a spiritual sense, is because I honestly believe that she's not fit and that she's corrupt. That's why. It's really out of kindness. It's out of a service to mankind that we're trying to stop her.
So are you pro-Trump or are you just anti-Hillary?
I'm more anti-Hillary. I would be counted as a soft Trump supporter. I supported Gary Johnson for a long time until he started making a fool of himself. And lo and behold, a couple days after I said I no longer supported him was his Aleppo moment. Now he's going downhill constantly. There's a spiritual reason for that as well, because the tide is no longer with him.
So tell me about your personal hexes that you've placed on Hillary Clinton.
Almost all of the magic that I perform is sonic in nature. It's sonic ritualism. I wrote a book on this subject too. That is, I weave music. Usually it's instrumental, it's ambient, it's really experimental. People don't quite get it. The reasoning behind that is it's just something that affects my psychology. Other people then partake in it by listening to it. Some people are like, well, this is too weird for me. They turn it off. Others think it's very strange and exciting. And that's where it gets the energy from, the psychological energy. It gets other people thinking, and that's really what I want to do. My ritualism also takes the form of what you could consider secular propaganda. When I speak about politics or society in general, of course I'm trying to convince people that my view is right and that other views competing with that are wrong. Any person would. It's just I happen to have a larger platform than the average person to talk about these things. Somebody talking to 5 or 6 of their friends in passing, probably not as effective as being able to target thousands or tens of thousands of people simply by plopping a video on YouTube, honestly.
So I know that one thing you did was you released a cover of Evil Woman from ELO.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
That was sonic ritualism, but at the same time, it was just enjoyable satire. I thought it fit Hillary Clinton's attitude. She is generally seen as an evil woman, not without good reason, I would say. You look at all of the leaks that we're awaiting. Who can possibly say that she's not corrupt? I still haven't met any of her fans in real life. I've still never seen a lawn sign for her. Nobody's excited about her being president. They're just voting against Trump. As far as the sonic side of that goes, though, when you make something funny, the way memetics works best is the thing that you're making is funny or evokes some other emotion. Satirical music is very funny to a lot of people, so it's more effective than simply putting down an ambient track that 10 people will listen to. And it does have an effect upon people's consciousness, even if they don't consciously have an awareness of it affecting their mind. Subconsciously, it still does. Everything that they absorb, that's why advertising is so reprehensible. Small children watch that on YouTube or on television. It seeps into their minds. Even if they're too young to speak yet, it still gets into their minds.
It's almost like
the way they
subliminal messaging. You're targeting the subconscious.
Yeah, it doesn't even need to be subliminal messaging. Anything that they behold around them affects their view of reality, especially in a formative stage. I don't think there should be ads on YouTube on the videos themselves at all. I think we should ban that internet-wide, and they can run a banner ad or something like that. It's my personal preference.
It's like when Trump says crooked Hillary. It's even if people don't think she's crooked, all of a sudden crooked Hillary is in their brains.
Yeah, he did this with Little Marco and Lion Ted, too.
Yeah.
And low energy jet, and it works. That's why he does it. He knows what he's doing. People think that he's a moron because he speaks off the cuff, but I think what he realizes is he doesn't need to make sense. He doesn't need to be coherent or nice because those aren't qualifications for being the president of the United States. All he has to do is put out enough psychobabble so that people can never bring themselves to vote for Hillary Clinton. The fact that she's likely to see several major leaks denigrate her support, I think, is really what's going to do her in, even more than Trump's own actions have.
You've also mentioned in your videos that you feel that you've been affecting Hillary's health, or at least the community in general has been affecting her health. Oh,
definitely.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, when you take a psychological toll on somebody who's pushing 70 so that they can't get it out of their mind that there are, supposedly millions of Nazis, I would say millions of people that have a rudimentary understanding of the esoteric, attacking them online day to day. When you realize that you're the first Democratic candidate in a generation that's not capturing the youth vote, you probably don't sleep so well at night, especially when you're already out campaigning. She's taking time off, she's having coughing fits, she's feigning, she appears robotic to people. She obviously only likes to speak from a script, and it's taking a toll on her mental health. At her age, being targeted by that much ire does affect the health. It's just a natural psychological phenomenon. It's the way of the body trying to regulate its own behavior in accordance with peer pressure.
And so you feel that Hillary is, but it's more than just Pepe the Frog. I mean, she's looking online at all these things that are painting her as a Nazi or a devil or something like that, or Pepe the Frog, and it's causing her actual physical degradation.
Yeah, it causes her anxiety. That leads to potentially insomnia, stress in general, and that doesn't do well for somebody she's got a strenuous schedule even while taking time off. She's constantly flying from state to state, constantly speaking for a half an hour at a time. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, for somebody her age to know that that many people have that much hatred against you would begin to take a little bit of a toll.
Did you see the Jimmy Kimmel interview with Hillary Clinton where she opened the jar of pickles?
Yeah, I thought that was very funny.
What is your view of that?
It was a non-issue. Either way you look at it, I don't care whether the pickle jar was open beforehand or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's still just Kimmel is comedy. So there's one thing. I don't really care if it's goofy. Number two, did anybody's mind change? No, probably not. Her fans assume she's healthy. Most of her critics think she's unhealthy. People who are in the middle make up their own minds. And really, that's the only segment of voters that matters right now. Everybody else has already decided who they're going to back. I'll be voting for Trump, not because I'm a big Trump fan, but because, honestly, Hillary terrifies me, the idea of her in that office. Trump doesn't scare me. I think he'd do an all right job. I'm not a Republican. I'm not registered as a Republican. I voted Ron Paul in 2012. I voted Obama in 2008. Thought that it was decent compared to somebody who thought it was a good idea to put Sarah Palin on as the vice president and then potentially have a heart attack and die in office. I wasn't going to deal with that.
How far would you take it? Like, if Hillary doesn't get elected, then would you just leave Hillary alone, or?
Yeah, I don't care anything beyond that, because by the time any other office was up, she'd be too old to run for it, so she'd be a non-issue. Yeah, as far as that goes, the only real goal of the current memetics going on largely is keep Hillary out of office. I would say a second goal that I have in mind, I am not a registered libertarian, but I am essentially a libertarian in ethos. I do want to see the rise of third parties. I do want to see Johnson crack the double digits in this election. I don't support him. I can't vote for him. I think he himself is a moron. But I think that if he underperforms just a little but still gets it across some critical thresholds, good things are in store for the libertarian movement. Maybe next time they get a nominee who knows what they're talking about, knows something about foreign relations. I think, and I've said this throughout the election for almost a year, Trump is a mild reformer. He can save the Republican Party from being destroyed by the current paradigm shift that's beginning to cripple the Democrats. But he can't reform the nation so much that it is completely saved from all the problems that we're undergoing. It can stave it off, it can make things better, and he'll look great in comparison to the last few presidents for doing so, because they obviously lacked that capability. But he can't permanently solve all the problems of the United States. That requires a true third party to rise up, to break the dichotomy that really is strangulating our politics. It makes everything less effective in every possible way.
Do you have any other campaigns outside of the political spectrum?
Oh, I have a lot of satirical music on the YouTube channel Fat Hawaiian Man. Most of that, though, is directed at ICQ chat. I had a long-standing, half-decade-long feud with the people who moderated that site.
What is ICQ chat?
It's a now extinct chatting service, ICQ chat. It was popular for a while when I first got there, like in 2007. Quickly went downhill, partially because of bad moderation. Used to have tens of thousands of people. Before it died, maybe a couple thousand. It was overrun with spam. The admins quit. Everybody just sort of fled into the hinterlands. I used to tease them to no end. I still do have a blog called the ICQ Christianity blog, where I sort of satirize every step that they took, everything that they did. And I put some music on there, yeah.
Why did you get into a fight with them?
Well, mostly it was, honestly, over spirituality. The moderators there were going after people who held pagan or occult views, especially on the Christianity page, which is why it's the ICQ Christianity blog, not the ICQ chat blog. And I was simply targeting them. I would raid them. I would call others to come and harass them, to overwhelm the site with spam. I myself would satirize them, and I would use those pages. I was knowledgeable enough to embed the chat in those pages themselves. So it funneled a never-ending stream of attackers into the site for years at a time, and they just got bored with it, and eventually the chatting service was dead.
What would you do if Hillary Clinton gets elected?
I would do nothing.
And why is that?
Because it's a republic. People will have voted. I think I wouldn't agree with their decision, but it would still be their decision to make. And coupled with that, I don't think she would do a good job. I think, oddly enough, the neoliberal movement might die faster if she is elected, because she's got such low rankings and trustworthiness. If Trump gets in there, we've got to realize Trump is also not generally well liked. He won't have a mandate, no matter how much of a margin he wins by. He won't be well liked by many segments of the voting population. He'll have to work to prove that he can be even a decent president. Clinton, I don't think, is capable of doing that. She's already made her policies clear, and the same policies that Obama has will be her policies. She can't change anything without violating campaign promises and alienating new sets of people. So she'd be a failure. And because of that, the youth, I think, would move even further to the right. The youth is already abandoning neoliberalism. They're not just abandoning it for the tired old neocon crazy Republicans of like Ted Cruz or John McCain. They're also abandoning it for third parties increasingly. I think that's a good thing. I want to see the Democratic Party die out. I don't want to see it continue to exist anymore because it's clear. After the DNC leaks and every other leak, they no longer represent anybody except for a handful of banks, corporate interests, and those that are already entrenched within the party. They don't represent unions. They don't represent the youth. They don't represent ending the drug war or not going and bombing people overseas. They're in favor of all these things. They're a party without any substance. But I don't have any onus against them as, oh, well, this Democratic Party has always been a problem. I don't say that. I say it's stagnant and it needs to be purified by fire by no longer having any power, so it dissolves and turns into something else. It's not like there won't always be people who have a more socially liberal, permissive ideology. I'm a social liberal. I don't care about gay marriage or abortion and things like that. I don't care if people smoke crack. But it doesn't have to be the tired old corporate-controlled Democratic Party representing these views, because it doesn't represent these views, and it hasn't for decades.
So, what should we look forward to in terms of what you're going to be doing between now and the election, in terms of your YouTube channel and what other things you might post in order to help with this goal?
Well, I'll continue doing the same work that I've been doing because it's working. Part of my ceremonialism involves my literature and things like that, and my YouTube in general. I get money for these things. It's how I make a living. And so, yeah, naturally I want to succeed. I'm considering all sorts of new projects that might help further my own work. As far as the political side, I'll be live streaming, doing analysis after each debate. On the night of the election, you'd better believe that I'll be live streaming. Probably 100,000 people will tune in to watch. It's going to be great. I get excited. The result matters even perhaps a little bit less to me than just that I'm involved in it, because it's something different. It only happens every 4 years. Sort of the changing of the guard, even if the person replacing Obama is a neoliberal like Clinton or a mild reformist like Trump. Hell, maybe Gary Johnson out of fucking nowhere or something. It doesn't really matter. It's still going to be entertaining.
And the YouTube channel is Styx Hexenhammer 666. That's
yes.
STYXHEXEN Hammer 666.
Yes.
Styx Hexenhammer, thank you for coming on the program.
It was a pleasure.